In 1946, Monogram, which had been reborn when W. Ray Johnson left Republic 9 years before, created a new unit called Allied Artists Productions to make bigger budget features. Allied Artists has the distinction of having produced what some consider the last true B-Western series. The star of this series, who had come to the studio in 1951, was William Wild Bill Elliott. I've already mentioned Elliott several times over the course of this series, as he was one of the biggest Western stars of the 1940s. He was born Gordon Nance in 1904 on a ranch near Pattonsburg, Missouri. He grew up around horses, and his father was the commissioner at the Kansas City Stockyards. Seeing a William S. Hart picture when he was 7 inspired him to become a Western star himself. By the time he was 16, Elliott had won first place at the American Royal Horse and Livestock Show. On reaching adulthood, he went to the Pasadena Community Playhouse for stage performances, and was eventually discovered by a talent scout who got him into motion pictures. Changing his name to Gordon Elliott, he would appear in bit parts and supporting roles in many films between 1925 and 1938. In 1938, he finally caught his big break, when Columbia cast him as the lead in its serial, The Great Adventures of Wild Bill Hickock.
Oh, yes, Snake Eyes.
Hi, Bill. What'll it be?
The usual.
Ha! I was afraid of that.
The success of this led Columbia to sign him on for a series, replacing Buck Jones, who had left for Universal. In his first few seasons at Columbia, Elliott, taking a cue from The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickock, played a character known as Wild Bill Saunders, who, he never failed to stress, was a peaceable man.
Are you looking for trouble?
I? Oh, no. I'm a peaceable man.
Who are you, anyway? The name is Bill Saunders. Some folks call me Wild Bill. But I'm a peaceable man. That's what some folks call me, but I'm a peaceable man.
That's a good name for now. Wait a minute, folks. Listen. I'm a peaceable man.
Well, you're the kind of a peaceable man that we've been looking for, Wild Bill.
Well, I declare, what do you say, Wild Bill? I knew I'd find you here.
Hello, Cannonball.
Dub Taylor was Elliott's sidekick in most of these early films, playing a character called Cannonball.
Put the cuffs on him.
In 1939, Bill starred in another serial about a famous Westerner, in Overland with Kit Carson. For the 1940-41 season, Bill's character became Wild Bill Hickock again, and then, as I've related, Tex Ritter was brought on as his co-star, after which Elliott left Columbia for Republic. Starting with the film Calling Wild Bill Elliott, the actor began using his own name on screen. Gabby Hayes was brought on for a time from the Roy Rogers pictures to co-star with Elliott, and the films he made during this period were some of the most consistent in quality of his career. In 1944, Elliott was cast as the Red Rider, in a series based on Fred Harmon's comic strip character, a role originally played by Don Red Barry in Republic's 1940 serial. Elliott would do 16 movies as the character over the next few years. In 1946, Republic decided to move Bill to big-budget westerns, and Alan Rocky Lane replaced him as the Red Rider.
And take a look at a loser.
Now billed as William Elliott, the actor would spend the next 4 years doing 8 pictures for Republic, many of them directed by Joseph Kane. In 1950, Republic began downsizing, and it was a year later, as I've said, that Elliott was forced to move to Monogram, soon to be known as Allied Artist, where he did his last series of B-Westerns.
Let him have it. Look, Diddle, you don't want to hurt anybody else. Now come on out here. You've got exactly 5 seconds or we're coming in after you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This series would last until 1954, when Allied Artist phased out its production of westerns. He was once again billed as Wild Bill Elliott for these pictures, though he played a different character in each one. Released on May 4th, 1954, The 49ers is Bill Elliott's last western, and, by some accounts, the last series western ever produced. In it, he plays Marshal Sam Nelson, who is on the trail of a pair of killers, played by John Dussett and Lane Bradford, who murdered a fellow marshal. To find them, he starts following Harry Morgan's Alf Billings, a card sharp who Elliott believes to have contracted the murderers.
Sentence, petty theft, 30 days. Abilene, suspicion of horse stealing, released. San Francisco, petty theft. Monterey, petty theft. San Jose, vagrancy. Yeah, there's plenty of men just like him in the West. He'll be hard to find.
Posing as a gunfighter, he saves the gambler from a lynching, and the two strike up a partnership.
But there are much easier and far more pleasant ways of getting it than mining it.
That's the way I feel about it. And between the two of us, it should be easy.
They travel to the town of Coldwater, where the two killers have become prosperous, one owning the local saloon and the other having become sheriff. Morgan hopes to blackmail them, while Elliott, suspecting that they are the men he's after, sets out to prove it.
The only trouble was I couldn't arrest them on just my opinion. I had to have proof.
Complicating matters is Dussett's wife, Stella, played by Virginia Gray. It turns out that Stella was an old friend of Billings, and that he still has feelings for her, and hopes to rescue her from her miserable life with her cruel husband.
Stella, you haven't had an easy time of it, I can see that. The drinking, your clothes. Bernie could afford much nicer things for you.
Now listen, Alfred Billings, if you
Hear me out, Stella.
Dear Chief, Billings has led me to the men we're after, I'm sure. However, I need proof. Please send the prisoner Everett here with one of your men to make positive identification as soon as possible. Sam Nelson, U.S. Marshal.
In the end, Elliott's true identity is discovered, forcing a confrontation between he, Morgan, and the two killers. Typical of this last batch of westerns from Elliott, The 49ers is a darker and more nuanced film than your average B-western. Part of this is due to the script, by Daniel Ullman, who penned many of Elliott's later westerns. Featuring a voiceover from Elliott that gives the proceedings a fatalistic feel, it has the quality of a noir film at times.
Marshal Sanford met his death at the hands of professional killers. He was murdered for money by two men whom he did not know and who did not know him.
A lot of this is also due to the actors, particularly Harry Morgan and Virginia Gray, who really elevate the material.
I came back to St. Louis looking for you, but you'd gone. Nobody knew where or with whom. If I'd known you were thinking of marrying Ernie Walker, I'd have stopped you somehow.
I wish you had.
Has it been that bad, Stella?
First it was all right.
Director Thomas Carr, who helmed several of Bill's movies for Monogram, as well as vehicles for Wayne Morris and Johnny Mack Brown, does an excellent job here. Bill's showdown with Lane Bradford, who, incidentally, appeared in Trial of Robin Hood, is really suspenseful. Elliott himself is great as the steely, determined Marshal, Sam Nelson. Ever steady, cool, and completely incorruptible, Nelson is a maturation of the kind of character Elliott had played from the start of his career.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Make your play.
I'm sorry I won't be seeing you at the end of a rope.
He began wearing his guns reversed once again during his series for Monogram, a trait he's adapted all the way back in The Great Adventures of Wild Bill Hickock, and one that was suggestive of his strange image, of a man who doesn't want trouble but is ever ready to meet it.
Go ahead and draw.
I wouldn't do that again, Sheriff.
No?
That's all, Sheriff.